welcome back to my channel. Hi, if you're new here, where have you been all my life? So I'm Matilda and I like to talk about different topics ranging from life and lessons, home and living, struggles, and so many more. So today we're actually going to get into renting in Singapore 2025 edition. Of course, a couple of things have changed since the last time we spoke in probably 2021, but you guys sent me a couple of questions on my NGL and we're going to run through all of them today. So this video is really going to be for first time renters, or it's your like manyest time renting, but you kind of just want to get a different perspective. I'm your girl. So yeah, a lot of things have changed since the last time we spoke, probably in like 2021, where I properly did like renting in Singapore and like the whole processes. So yeah, the processes have not changed as much, but I would say some things that have changed is kind of like my attitude towards hunting for homes now, and we're going to get into that with all the different questions that you guys have asked me. So yeah, if you have any further questions as well, feel free to pop it into our comment section below here. I'll answer it in a follow-up video. Anyway, so my first question from NGL is, any tips for locals who are first-time renters? Honestly, my best tip has always been the same, which is just to go out for viewings. Really just head out and see what you like, whether it's a HDB unit or it's a condo unit or it's a unit in a private home. You know, you never know what's gonna be your cup of tea until you're actually there and you get to see the full state of how, you know, the space that you're gonna live in. And I think that's a very glaring way to tell what you like and what you don't like. So personally for myself, like I make it a habit where I want to get to a viewing ASAP, and if I'm interested in the space, I'll actually tour it again one more time at night, so I get two different timings, in the day and at night, just to see this general vibe and whether or not I like it or not. Main tip, get yourself out to viewings. Second tip, know exactly what kind of information you should be sharing with the property agent, and tips that you shouldn't be sharing with the property agent. Things that you should be sharing, definitely your profile, your working adult, term is a certain date from a certain date, you're ready to move in ASAP, what not to share. And also not obligatory is actually your race, because sometimes, you know, you don't want them to profile you in a certain way. I find that that's something that is a bit weird with Singaporean property agents, is that they actually look at your race. And also other things that you don't want to share, I guess, would be your budget straight up. So give them a range and have them play around with it so they don't like hold you to it, you know. And yeah, I think that's the main tips I have. Go for viewings and know what to share and what not to share with the property agent. Also, lastly, obviously, I think this tip is going to be so no-brainer, but don't fall for scams and get your listings through verified people or verified property agents, especially if you're using the big few apps, you know. But yeah, I would avoid Facebook Marketplace purely because I've seen my friends get scammed. Not fun. I hate the idea of them getting scammed of money, and I think this part we can definitely control on in terms of where we're finding our listings. So yeah, you can definitely avoid these kind of situations. How do you find a cheap apartment to yourself? Whenever I find that it's always sharing room, and if it's entire unit, it's so expensive. Help! Totally valid. Everyone has a different definition of cheap apartment. So cheap apartment could be anything from like $600 to $1,000. Your cheap could be that, my cheap could be less than $2,000. So I think the word cheap is very varied in terms of everyone's appetite and how much they're willing to cough up for rent. But to be conservative, I would say that anything below 1.5k is cheap. And I think that unfortunately in this like renters market, there are no spaces, not a lot of spaces that you can get at 1.5 or below for an entire unit. Because from what I hear from a lot of friends who are also doing their, you know, HDB sharing, they're doing like common room and master bedrooms, the most that they're paying is still like 1.4, 1.6, around that range. However, there are some units in certain areas of Singapore which I would say come close to that, about 1.6. So one of the viewings that I went to, and I'll pop in some videos for you guys to see, is that this was actually a condo unit in a rather big complex, and this is a one room with its own like amenities, like washer dryer. You don't have a sink in this one, which was very weird to me. And this place was going at 1,006. Honestly, I would have considered it if I was okay with not having a sink. But to be honest, I need the sink because I wash a lot of my plates. I use it on a daily basis, so I definitely need these things. And that's the only reason why I didn't go for it. Also, I have to say it did come with mold near the aircon, so obviously we're not gonna go for an apartment that is a little bit dangerous and toxic to us. So yeah, I don't think it's about a matter of cheap, but it's a matter of what you're willing to sacrifice for this cheap price. So example, for a common room in a HDB, you're sacrificing your privacy because you're going to have to share your toilets with someone. Another thing is, if you are okay and willing to sacrifice a sink, you may find such dual key units in certain areas of Singapore, and I'll leave some of these suggestions here as well. But yeah, I think that cheap is still very, very dependent on what your definition is. But I would say I have other friends who also share apartments with their friends. So in this way, they trust the people that they're going to live with, and they split the total rent cost of an entire unit into 3. So that makes a lot more sense, to be honest with you. If you're able to share and get your friends to be your housemates, I think that would be the most ideal, because then it's like the most optimal, But yeah, anyway, that was my take on how do you find a cheap apartment. Have you thought about owning a house? To be very honest with you, yeah, like always. So I think in Singapore, it is always a good idea to own a home under your name. At least you have some sort of asset tied to your name that is going to be appreciating. And let's be so for real, Singapore properties always appreciate in value, unless in certain cases landed homes or like freehold units sometimes don't, but most cases the price tends to appreciate depending on your area also, of course. But I do think about it, owning a house from time to time, just that right now I don't think I wanted to get myself into a loan and be tied down with a debt tied to my name. I would rather it be like a pay per use kind of situation. So I'm renting for like a year, and that means like just for a year, I don't know. It's not a matter of like not wanting to live in Singapore. I do want to live in Singapore. I mean, the prices are very high as well, and it definitely turns me away because I'm just like, shit, like, it's a huge amount for like one person to handle. So I am thinking, maybe once my fiance and I settle down, we get married, and then we get to think about where we want to stay. Like, is it in Singapore, is it in Germany, or yeah, I think we'll figure it out as we go. But I'm trying not to be so tied up about this idea of needing a house now, because it's not really a need, it's more like a nice want, But yeah, that's my own perspective of owning a home in Singapore, which is how do you decide on the rent prices if your income is not fixed monthly? This is definitely something that has been on my mind for a long time. I think because being a full-time content creator now, my monthly salary is really fluctuating. It depends. Some months can be amazing and some months are not that great. So I think this really links also to some of the finance videos that I've been doing in the last month. Is that I'm trying to really lower my expenses to the bare minimum. Like, a lot of things I don't need to buy, and to furnish this apartment as well, I didn't really need too many additional things. I just needed like my towel, the bare essentials basically. And that's kind of how I've been dealing with managing the expenses, just buying things when I need it and not stocking it up for no extra reason. I think also another thing is that I do have a lot of like different savings tucked into different places now, because I started investing like around last year only, but I do have pockets of money just hiding in places where I'm able to be able to take it out if anything really happens. But thankfully, being a content creator in Singapore, I think so far the money has been rather consistent, so I'm able to justify my rent price at this point. But I'm just thinking like it always helps to have like a just in case kind of fund, and to make sure I'm like prepared for a rainy day, if ever. Which is how do you afford rent and save at the same time? As mentioned previously, I really am very I scrutinize every single expense now, and I try not to buy things unless truly necessary. Of course, food is necessary, but things like I think no, the other day I did go thrift shopping because I was genuinely traumatized by my dentist. But yeah, nowadays I don't shop, like barely at all. And I only buy the essentials when I need it. So toilet paper, if it ends, then I'll get it. Bananas, if it runs out, then I'll get it. And then also I'm quite like in some sense thrifty because I have like a daily budget of like $20 to $30 for food, and half of it is like, you know, most of it is spent on lunch and dinner because I have breakfast at home and I also have my coffee at home. So to me, this is me already like cutting costs in some way. But I am very, you know, I do scrutinize every single expense that goes out, and I track all my credit cards as well. How do I save money? It's really just like making sure I don't overspend and spend beyond my means. I have like I have a monthly budget that I set nowadays, which is, do you think moving out is worth it? Because it's technically money gone every month. So the only reason why this time round I decided to move out, and so quickly, right? Because I arrived to Singapore from Germany on a Friday, and then I searched for the apartment on Sunday. I found this apartment and then I moved in on Wednesday. So honestly, the timeline was freaking short. But my main driver was because that I knew I needed my own space to be myself. And I have been used to the level of freedom that I had when I was staying in Tanjong Katong, which is this other rental that I had. I mean, you guys can find the video here. But that being said, I really needed my own space to be my own person, and my mom's home was pretty chaotic in the sense of there were always, you know, the two of them running around, my mom and stepdad, leaving the house, coming into the house, and sometimes we all have like different calls at different times, or sometimes it coincides. And that to me was rather chaotic because to do a full-time content creator job, I need a quiet space where I'm able to film, or I need quiet space for me to scrutinize my own edits and to hear whether, you know, the captions are correct, or, you know, all these kind of things. Like, it really matters, like in the environment that I'm in. So I needed a safe space, and I needed a place where, you know, I could call my own and I could basically just be myself and not have to like put up some kind of front. Like, I mean, of course it's family, but you still put up some front because technically you know that they are around you, so you don't want to disturb their peace as well, right? So for me, I think that it is worth moving out, because for me, what worried me at first was that, shit, am I going to be able to afford rent? Because my work is so, you know, up and down. You know, some days can be good, some months not that great. So to me, I think I believed, or I still believe, in my capability to earn more and to put myself out there and find a job if really anything hits the fan, right? And that was how I was gonna approach this, that, you know, I can afford rent for at least like 6 to 8 months to 9 months, heck, even a year. But it's more so like, do I save enough for other things? Then yeah, so that's the part where I'm still trying to figure out. But I still think it's still worth it because it is the price for my mental health. It says, are you worried about your parents being alone once you move out? So actually, I've already moved out, you know, from their place since 2021, and now we're in 2025, right? So yeah, I think that's already been like something they've dealt with before. I do love my parents a lot, and I've never really stayed with my dad since I was like a kid. So I think my dad's pretty like independent, he's very chill. But my mom, she also moved to Thailand. So honestly, you know, she's living her best damn life. She's living the life that I lived last year, where I was like, you know, traveling in between Bangkok or maybe other parts of the world as well. But I think, yeah, they're chill, and I don't think they cause me to worry. I guess my dad has some kind of like, my dad is definitely more on my radar because he did go through something scary earlier this year, which also scared the hell out of me. But now that he's more chill, I think he's fine. It's just that like, I do check in on them now, especially because I'm in Singapore, right? So I have more time to check up on them. So yeah, I don't really worry about them once I'm moved out. We're still pretty much always in contact. So I probably should have answered this way earlier, but this person asked, how much does a studio cost? Well, this specific one costs about 1,900. I have my own toilet, my own kitchenette. The only thing that we do share is the washer dryer, and I think honestly this price is alright. It's not too bad. For the location that I have, I think I'm saving so much more money as well because I don't need to cab here, especially when I'm out at night. I think what it lacks, it makes up for in terms of the location, which is perfect for me, and I'm very happy right now. Where Q&A is, which locations do you narrow down? Is it based on cost? 100% based on cost and 100% based on the opportunity cost if I miss out on it. So I only went for 2 viewings this time round, and 2 viewings were all I needed. I did inquire on so many else, but when I saw this apartment, I kind of already knew that this was where I was going to set my roots in. But I did see one more apartment just to be a bit more curious about it. But the second apartment was a little bit too far from the MRT, about 11 minutes walk, and that was like too much for me. But this one, honestly, it was very central and the price made sense to me, and that's kind of the reason why. Also, I think I've already shared with you the price. I think it makes the most sense because I'm still able to maintain like a space on my own. You know, I don't have to share anything with anyone else, and it's good enough for me at this point in time. But yeah, that was all the questions that I had. Thank you so much for sending it over on my NGL. I had to filter through so many other unnecessary questions, but that's a story for another day. But thank you so much for watching if you stayed all the way until here. If you have any other questions about renting in Singapore, please feel free to pop it in the comments below. I do have many other past videos about the whole process if you're interested in that, and I'll link you guys all below in the description. But yeah, feel free to like, share, subscribe, and if you're thinking about renting, all the best in your journey. I always love looking at apartments, especially on the big apps that, you know, are present in Singapore. And yeah, I can't wait to see you guys in my next episode, where I'll be talking a little bit more about my finance POV in the month of May or June. Okay, we'll see how it goes. And then yeah, I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye!